Hi, welcome to another episode of Drawing with Lacey. Today we're going to be drawing Frida Kahlo's house, the Blue House, which is now a museum in Mexico City. So if you're ever interested in seeing her work and where she lived, you can go down there and I think the tickets were like $12 for non-citizens of Mexico. So I did a little research because I was like, what would it be like to go to her house? So you can tour it. I imagine you could probably find pictures of it online. So we're going to be drawing her house. And I thought it might be kind of fun to add a little color today. So if you want to get out colored pencils or paints or whatever, her house is blue. How beautiful is that? So we'll get a chance to incorporate a little color today. And as always, if you just want to watch and enjoy, you're welcome to do that. I'm just glad you're here. So go ahead and get out your supplies and we'll get started. All right, so we have our materials here. If you're first timer with us and you're a first timer with permanent marker, you might want to have another sheet of paper underneath so you don't bleed through and leave little marks on your drawing surface or desk. I've got my permanent marker here and I've got a blue marker because we're going to play with color today in honor of Frida Kahlo's Blue House. So let's get ready. And remember last time we talked about foreground and background, and we're going to work on the foreground a little bit here by adding in a tree first. So in the image there's two trees in the front. There's also a power or telephone pole and maybe a street light. We're going to ignore some of that and just put in the tree first, and then we'll add some trees in the background later. So let's get to work on this tree. Some little bushes, or they're kind of like bushes. They're not because they're trees. And the bigger you make the tree, the more space it will take up of the building. So just keep that in mind. And if you're wondering why I'm kind of doing these in little bunches instead of one big blob, it's because this tree in the image is a little bit sparsely populated with leaves, so I'm going to try and mimic that in the drawing here. Okay, and bring a little bit in here, fill in kind of that weird little spot. Okay. So this tree also has a nice little curve to it, and if you have shaky hands, you have the best hands for drawing. So for drawing tree branches, anyways. So we're gonna bring in that kind of leaning tree. Whoa, it's leaning real far in mine. You might take it a little less so. And we'll kind of give these little branches a little more heft to them. Okay. Bring that down. Okay. Okay, so we've got the tree pretty quick there. And again, it's a little messy. You can find ways that you like to draw trees. and try them out, you know. And if you have a method you think will work better than what I'm doing, I would love for you to share. But again, I kind of have my own style, you know, as you'll notice. You know, I kind of have a way of doing things that I like. So we're going to turn the drawing so I can draw this line a little bit straighter. We've got a nice rectangular building, which is helpful. So we're going to draw the top of it. Bring that line over. Okay. It's got the top there. That's great. Mostly level. Not perfect, but that's okay. So again, we're not going to have the rest of that stuff in the foreground, so we're just going to go ahead and finish up this building. Bring down these walls. And normally I would, you know, take it off the, you know, take it to the edge of the paper, but I kind of want to experiment with the color a little bit, so I'm going to kind of have just a little tiny bit of blue there. Okay, let's bring in that second ledge. Cut through the trees here. Woo. Let's see if you can do it without getting too wily. Okay, so I'm not going to take it all the way over because this is a whole other thing. So we're also going to give that kind of some depth there. Add that little lip. Okay. All right. So let's work on this side here so we can kind of work our way back. I'm kind of methodical, but also very random in how I do this. So if you have excellent handwriting, I would encourage you to fill out the rest of the sign. I do not, so I'm not going to do that. All right, bringing that beam down. A little wobbly there. Remember, I'm a wobbly woman. I've got lots of wobbly lines. Okay. There we go. And that sign drops down about right there. Hey, mind your own business there, marker. All right. So again, if you want to put in Museo Frida Kahlo, I encourage you to do that. I will not subject you to my crummy handwriting this time around. So, all right, so I'm gonna take a couple liberties here. I'm not gonna draw the people. We've got some tourists in there. I'm just gonna cut them out of there. We don't need them in there. And I'm also kind of tucking the door a little bit behind this ledge. So if you don't like that, you can draw it however you want. Okay, and I'm gonna kind of draw that shadow in here with a little bit of this black marker here. I think it would just be so lovely to visit this place. I love looking at famous artists' homes just because I think it says so much about, you know, how their work was influenced and what their life was like, you know, how colorful this building is says a lot about who Frida Kahlo was. So I think, you know, it's interesting to look at and study their homes. All right, so I'm gonna put a little protective barrier there, maybe a little grass. It's kind of interesting when trees grow up like in the middle of sidewalks. It almost seems so unnatural, you know? All right, so I've got this thing going here. This is kind of where that brick or that stone part is. So I'm gonna bring that through. And if drawing this long of a straight line is a little daunting to you, know that it is also for me. And you're welcome to bring in a ruler. I like to kind of just draw with that one, like I've said. All right, so we've got that bottom part in there. Now we're gonna bring in that little beam and finish up with the windows. So I'm trying to think of the proportion of this building, and we've sort of already made the proportion a little bit strange, so I'm gonna keep going with that theme and bring that beam about right here. Come on down. There we go. Okay. So we're gonna have one window here and 3 windows on this side. So let's start with that first window. And if you're wanting to make everything kind of level, what I would recommend doing is drawing the tops of the window first. So we've got one here, one through these branches, and one that's not gonna be there, but will kind of come down again. So let's bring the bottoms in. Maybe we can draw the sides. Nice big windows. We're making these big for Frida. I'm sure that if she were here, she would approve of that. Okay. Let's bring this one down. All right, we're getting somewhere here. Oops, cut that window a little bit short there. And this one is going to be a little wonky because I made it that way. But it's behind the tree, so we get some interesting texture here. Okay. And I'm just going to start back at this place here. Add in where this is red in the image. So we got that little fun frame there. And I'm not gonna put in the bars because that kind of bums me out. So in our world, there are no mean people that would break into these windows. Just sweet, kind people who just want to see beautiful art. And already this window's looking a little sad for. I'm just kind of adding some texture. If you look at the windows, you know, it's very, it's got a lot going on, so I'm kind of simplifying them for us today. If you want to go in and draw all those details, you probably have more time and more patience than I do, and I applaud you for that. Okay, getting that window in. It's pretty tight. So these are clearly the people who built this house, did a better job making sure everything was even than I did. But you know, nothing's perfect, right? Someday I'm gonna go to this place and I'm gonna see this blue for real. It's gonna make me so happy. If you've been there, I expect you to report back to me about the blue. Blue is my favorite color. And I just think, what would we be without blue in the world? Our sky would be so sad. Okay, let's go ahead and work in that stone. And like I said in my last video, you know, I don't do things, you know, photorealist. So we're gonna work in kind of just the texture of things. So in this one, it's not the straight bricks, you know, you got kind of the beautiful organic shapes of the stone. And I'm just kind of making this textured here, just so that I remember not to go up here with my stones, because that might happen. So if this, you know, if you want to draw your own texture or create whatever, you know, go for it. This is just how I'm doing it here. For better, for worse, right? Last but not least, we'll finish up this guy over here. Okay. All right, so I think it's safe to say that the building is done. So we're now gonna add in those trees. I'm gonna kind of toss in a little sidewalk there. So let's add in the trees and then we'll add in that color. All right, so we've got this tree, big tree right here. So let's start working on that one. I almost kind of have to be quiet as I'm doing this just because it requires a little more concentration. Create some layers here. There's a tree in the foreground, or kind of a bigger tree coming at us here, but I think we can kind of forego that for today. If you have more time and you want to come back and draw that in, be my guest. There's more of that signature branch stuff there. Just kind of add a little fun texture in there. And I'm gonna bring in a tree over here. And a little something over here, just to give this a little more depth. Okay, I'm pretty pleased with that. Feel free, you know, on your own to do as much or as little as you want. If you want this to be totally blank and you want to go nuts with the blue, go for it. Okay, let's get that blue in here, because I think really that's the showcase. Okay. So I'm just keeping it simple, just doing little hash marks, if you want to call that. If you want to do stippling, that's where you draw the little tiny dots. That's really fun, but also it makes my hands cramp. So, you know, I'm not going to do that. If you have crayons, more colored pencils, you could do some custom colors. My sister, she is a master with coloring crayons. She is so good. I remember as a kid, we would have coloring books. I was always so jealous of her ability to create shades that, you know, and depth in these, you know, flat coloring books. And so, you know, if that's your style, this building is right for it. Looks like it's kind of made of, I guess, stucco, or kind of a similar texture. So you could always kind of play with that if you want. I'm pretty simple in my own picture here. And if you want to add more than just blue, if you want to add in those reds and greens, go for it. I'm really wanting to emphasize the blue here, if only because I like to keep my drawings as simple as possible, and it seemed like a shame, since this house is literally called the Blue House, to not have blue in it, but I think if it were any other house, I might not be so inclined to add color. But this is your drawing. You can do whatever you want. You can color it red if you want. I won't be there to tell you, hey, that's not right, right? I'm not gonna come knocking on your door and be the coloring marker police. Okay, a little bit more in there. Funny thing about adding color is it also shows you kind of where you messed up a little bit. So it's a good tool to sort of figure out like, oh, you know, I need to work on my proportions. Or my line work needs some help, you know, because this is a learning process too, right? Like I'm learning alongside you guys, and I think you can never really, I mean, you know, maybe some people would disagree with me, but there's always something to learn, even if you've been doing it for a really long time. You know, you always are learning something new, whether it's the way you see the world or the way you put it on the page, right? So don't think that, you know, you'll reach this point in your art where, oh my gosh, I've learned everything there possibly is to know. I just don't think that's true. And not to be, you know, not to say that, you know, you won't ever be good at it, right? Like maybe you're really good at it right now and you can just ignore everything I say, but I think, why not try and learn something new every time you approach the canvas or the paper? Okay. Well, there you have it. We've got our blue house. And again, if you want to color in more, this is a great one for it. It's so colorful and beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me. It was really good to have you here, and I hope to see you again next time.